Welcome back. In a moment, we'll examine the trade in conflict antiquities as they're known. But first, here are some other stories to keep an eye on. Russia and China are conducting joint naval exercises that will include defense, rescue, anti-submarine operations, as well as island defense and assault tactics. The 8-day drills come as Chinese activities in the South China Sea continue to stir controversy among neighboring countries. North Korea's latest suspected nuclear test has renewed tensions on the Korean peninsula. The international community has condemned any such nuclear activity, but the South now believes the North Korean regime may conduct a 6th test in the near future. And Muslims around the world have begun their Eid celebrations. The world's 1.6 billion Muslims will pray, eat, and make sacrifices to honor the occasion, as well as making time for family and community. Scenes of destruction of ancient buildings and artifacts have shocked the world, but trade in these precious commodities mean that they are still arriving on Western shores. Many dispute the authenticity of such items, but there is no argument about how profitable supplying the demand is.
Syrian and Iraqi cultural artifacts are being stolen and sold on the international black market. Yemen, Libya, and Egypt are among other countries that have fallen prey to this illicit trade, as weak and hard to enforce global laws make the black market hard to police. Daesh have reportedly looted up to $300 million worth of antiquities from territories they've overrun in Syria and Iraq. The figures are difficult to confirm. They have not only sold them. Ancient artifacts in World Heritage sites have also been destroyed by the group. The ancient city of Palmyra and Nimrod, the first Assyrian capital, have tragically been partially bulldozed. Daesh have made concerted efforts to destroy sculptures, artifacts, and World Heritage sites, selling items deemed to be priceless because they consider them to be un-Islamic, while the world has condemned the irreplaceable losses to civilization. Dismantling what remains in Iraq following more than a decade of war, Daesh are not the first to profit from stolen antiquities. Following the American-led invasion of Iraq in 2003, widespread looting took place. The U.S. was criticized for failing to protect the country's antiquities sites. The National Museum and National Library were among those ransacked, with thousands of ancient artifacts lost. Following the rise of Daesh and their smuggling and destruction of ancient goods, greater attempts have been made to protect these sites. No easy task in a region ravaged by war.
To discuss this further, joining me now via Skype is Amr Al-Azam, an associate professor in history and anthropology at Shawnee State University in Ohio. And here in the studio, Catherine Tubb joins us, a lecturer in cultural heritage at the University College of London. Amr, perhaps I can begin with you and just give me some scale. This is not a few looters, this is a worldwide industry.
Certainly, this is a problem that is much older than the current sort of crises that we see in the Middle East today. And I can take you back to as far back as you, in fact, I can take you as far as we wish to go. If you think as long as people have been putting their dead into the ground and putting nice objects with them, there have been those who've tried to loot those and profit from this. But if just a more contemporary period, just think of the Khmer Rouge, just think of the Taliban, the Khmer Rouge that is in Cambodia. All of these have profited from looting the cultural heritage of their countries. And now more recently we see this ongoing in Syria, and Iraq, where you have this extremely aggressive looting that is ongoing, and it is being used to fund the conflict to a certain extent.
Right, I do want to talk about the sources of income and just how rich people are getting from this. But Catherine, when you take a look at the scale of this is not a few people getting rich, it's more organized than that. Would you agree?
I would think it's highly organized. It may start off being those people who are extremely poor or in a really unstable economic situations, or when there's conflict, obviously, who are actually scrabbling just to stay alive. But the thing is, as soon as it becomes obvious that this is a rich source of money, then you're going to get criminal activity coming in.
Criminally organized.
Oh yes, very often, very often. And the material is shipped out of these countries that are being exploited in this way through smuggling routes that are there for any kind of thing that's going to be smuggled. So this makes it a very difficult problem.
Emma, when you talk about organizations like Daesh, they are using this more than to line their pockets with. Is it funding terrorism?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, this is very important to understand. When Daesh, ISIS took over large swathes of territory from the end of 2013 and into 2014 in both Syria and Iraq, they came upon a pre-existing situation of looting. The looting was already happening. But what they did do, and that's what really fundamentally changed the game, is they institutionalized the process. They looked at this and said, okay, this is a source of income, and so they started to tax the activities, they started to issue licenses, and we see an evolution, and so by 2015, they're literally involved in every level of this operation, right from the extraction of material to the ground, where they have their own people sort of working either side by side with locals or contracting out to established entities that are looting and pillaging on a large scale, using heavy machinery, bulldozers, backhoes, and these sites are just being absolutely pillaged. It is very important to stress here. ISIS, Daesh, like other entities before them, see cultural heritage as a resource to be exploited, similar to oil, similar to mineral wealth, and alongside extortion and other acts of criminal activity that they conduct.
Catherine, I mean, there's no doubt that they have destroyed some of it, and it's been seen all over the world, and in such a tragic way on some of those sites. But do you believe that they are indeed selling it and profiting from it and funding organizations from it? Because that has been disputed by some people.
I think it's disputed because so much of the material hasn't appeared on the market yet. Some things are coming onto the market, but really a lot of it you don't see. But I mean, that's to misunderstand how the market in antiquities works. I mean, the fact is you don't have to actually have a big turnover. You can warehouse this material for years. I mean, for 10 years, 20 years, it really doesn't matter. And then bring it out when, people are a little less sharply looking for it and this kind of thing. So someone is making money, but every step of the way, as it changes hands, the price inflates. And the people who are actually getting it out of the ground are, generally speaking, not those who profit the most.
Who's buying it?
Usually dealers at this stage.
In the West?
If it's not appearing anywhere, because it's an international market, so it can show up anywhere at all. And you don't know there are international networks and this kind of thing. So we don't really know. We know kinds of the routes out that some of them are taking, either through Jordan, either through Turkey, either into the Emirates. But we really don't know exactly where this material is, but it's easy to warehouse.
And I want to ask you, I mean, from my personal experience, I was with American troops as a reporter when they invaded Baghdad in 2003, widespread looting. And American commanders, when we asked them, the tragedy of this, are you going to try and stop it? They said, look, that's not my role. I'm a soldier. We're here for regime change, et cetera, et cetera. But if the West doesn't stop it, then that's kind of a license just to carry it on a very large scale, correct?
I mean, yes, but I mean, stopping it is a very open word. I mean, how do you actually stop it? And this is what we've been trying to address here in the US and elsewhere in Europe, and also inside Syria, where a lot of my work is focused on helping sort of local activists, local museum curators, local archaeologists try to document at the very least what is happening, and from time to time try to sort of minimize this kind of damage. But I think Catherine was very correct in what she was saying, and I would tell you that just by way of reminder, by the time an object has left the country, it is on its way from dealer to dealer, as Catherine described. The organizations that are basically looting, and in this case, terrorist organizations like that, have already been paid. They've already made their money. So you're already too late, if you see what I mean.
There's no way to protect the sites themselves. Because there's no way to protect the sites themselves because of the chaos on the ground. So you have to catch it as it goes into Western dealers then.
Well, what you have to do, it's a supply and demand issue. So you can try and stop the work from the supply end, but it's very difficult because of the situation on the ground. So the other way to choke it is to choke it on the demand end, and that means basically attempting to stop it from here in Europe and around the rest of the world. If there is no demand for it, then the supply dries out. And I think that's what people have tried to do. That's why we've had new legislation here in the United States, specifically, targeting the sale of looted antiquities from Syria and Iraq. And I believe there was a UN Security Council as well, resolution that also attempted to restrict that. But there needs to be so much more done. These are just touching the tip of the iceberg.
Let's bring Catherine in on that. I mean, if you had your A list for solution, what would it be in terms of stopping the illegal trade of antiquities?
It would indeed be to stop the demand. I concur completely with Amir there, because that's the real problem, and that's where we are. So that's where we can try to do something. But he's also completely correct in saying, but the destruction of these sites has already happened. Fragile materials have been utterly destroyed, and so those are lost. So it's only the kinds of things that will actually survive this kind of rough treatment that you actually end up having on the market.
Catherine,
but trying to kill the market's difficult.
Trying to kill the market is indeed difficult, and that's where all the efforts will go in the future, I'm sure. And Catherine, Amir, thank you so much for talking to us about it. It's a compelling subject. We end with our Insight Bite, a little something that we feel that you should know. And if heights aren't your thing, well, look away now. China is nearing completion of the world's highest bridge. These vertigo-inducing pictures show the scale of the project, which has been constructed in the country's southwest. The bridge sits some 565 meters above the Baipan River and is more than 1 kilometer long. The cost of the bridge estimated to be $150 million, and it will open to the public later this year. That's all for now. I'm Dana Lewis, and this was Insight.